You're a Jamaican, you're abroad, and you want to invest in the market. It's not complicated. You get an architect, get your drawing done, get it approved, and there are reputable contractors, whether you want to use a Chinese or whether you want to use a local, a registered, reputable contractor, get it done and get it sold.
And so how do you find this team? How do you find the architect? How do you find the contractor? How do you find the land? Hello, Throp family, and welcome back to another video podcast episode. If this is your first time visiting, a special welcome to you. My name is Winthrop Wellington, and I am the host of On Deck with Throp, where we have meaningful conversations all about Jamaica. And today we are on location in Kingston, having a main focus on the real estate boom happening out here. And today I have a special guest, Noel Phillips, who is a realtor here in Kingston, who's been showing me all around town the last few days. And I was just so excited to have an official sit down to get more in depth. So allow me to officially welcome Noel to the show.
Hey, Tom. Nice to be here.
Noel, how long have you been a realtor?
I have been in the real estate industry almost a decade now.
Okay, and where are you from originally?
I am a Kingstonian,
Okay.
born and bred.
Okay.
Kingstonian.
All right. And what made you get into the real estate business?
Well, I've been close to it from the construction side. So my father was in construction. I was in sales before, supermarket, grocery sales. And it was not a hard transition, you know what I mean? I felt for a career change. I had a person in my life who was a mentor at the time. He was in real estate and he was advising me from, years before. I finally decided to give in. And so in about 2013, I made a transition to come into real estate.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So being that you're a Kingstonian, born and bred here,
That's right.
and then you also got into real estate, you have literally lived and seen the transformation of Kingston.
Yeah, pretty much, and especially from the real estate perspective, kind of been very intimate with it over the last decade.
Okay, and what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in your time?
Really is just really the move from single family homes to more high density developments over the last decade, 15 years, and also just this how demand has skyrocketed, and following that, how price has kind of skyrocketed over the last couple of years as well.
When do you think, or when do you remember this uptick start to happen?
In my memory, pretty much, I'm thinking probably about 8-10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why do you think it happened or started then?
I think it's a couple of things. I think just the demand for places, people want a place to live, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing. More people who work in the corporate area want to live closer to work. You know what I mean? It makes more sense. I remember 10 years ago, before some of the roads in Kingston were widened, to come out of the city was literally hours, especially if you live in St. Catherine or you live upper St. Andrew. Just to get home from New Kingston in the evening would take literally, it's almost like you're driving to Montego Bay or
Right.
Race. So based on that and how just painstaking it would have been just to travel, I think that was probably one of the first things that started the catalyst. That made more sense for persons to move closer to work. So transition from work to home and vice versa would be easier.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, the road improvements, can you speak to that? Because I know me from coming from Negril to Kingston, the highway is amazing. So now every time I come here, North Coast, no matter what.
Yeah, that's right.
And then as you're coming into Kingston, that whole highway, is that Washington?
Washington Boulevard.
Washington Boulevard. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Very, very well done. And then intra-Kingston, there has been some major work. So if you can just speak to that a little bit, please.
Yes, so the Washington Boulevard that you spoke to just now was formerly 2 lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine that all of the persons who live in Kingston 20 had to use that. All of the persons who are going to Portmore, Spanish Town, Old Harbour had to use that. So the Washington Boulevard was an absolute nightmare in the evenings and in the mornings too. Constant Spring was also a terrible route to commute on. There was some work also in Barbican over the last few years, because that was also a terrible, was a nightmare too. So there's systematically been just, government has been working on quite a few roads, some of which were major thoroughfares that people would use to get home and get to work in the morning and the evenings. And so it has made commuting from work and home easier in a lot of these areas.
So with that, it kind of goes hand in hand, the development that's happening, and then also the ease of commuting, the ease of transversing in and out of and within Kingston. I think that it seems like it's helping each other. Definitely,
absolutely. And there's been a lot of demand for Jamaican real estate from outside of the country as well. And from inside of the country, for persons who are just looking to invest. So with all of those things coming into the pot, it has kind of, with just the limited space in the corporate area, and then so many persons are interested in living in the corporate area, for whether you're an investor or somebody trying to own your first property or somebody trying to invest. Over the last 10 years, we've just seen a real push on the demand for property, and hence, prices going up and more high density development just coming on stream.
And we visited many of those high-density developments, thanks to you. You showed us around, and also some of the other agents that work for Valerie Levy and Associates.
Yeah.
You obviously have relationships with these developers.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to speak for them, but what are they seeing, or what did they see that maybe other people didn't see that gave them the confidence to invest so much in Kingston?
I think it's just like any other business decision. It was obviously profitable. You know what I mean? It's just like anything. If you're selling something and the demand kind of outweighs supply, it's a good marketplace or a good market to enter in. And so for many years, demand for the corporate area properties outweighed supply by probably 50, 75%. And so you find a lot of persons over the last probably 10 years were in totally different industries, but just how lucrative it was, you know what I mean? For most of the properties that have been built in Kingston, as I say, over the last decade, sold out long before they were finished. Sometimes sold out before they even started construction. So based on that, the confidence was there for persons to realize how lucrative the industry was. So to enter it, it was always a good investment.
And do you think now, with developments that have been completed, the ones that are in construction and going to be approved, do you think these developments have caught up to demand?
Not yet, because as I said, the demand has always been much greater than the supply. The equilibrium might be closer, but I don't think we have reached the place where there is no longer demand for property in Kingston. While some aspect of it, like while prices may get higher, and then you might find that some areas and some properties in the corporate area might be pushed out of the reach of some person who would want to live. But you still have other aspects of the market which with maybe just investors from Jamaica who want a safe place to put their money other than the bank, or somebody overseas who has a lot more liquid to work with, especially with the exchange rate that we're working with now. So there's always that aspect of the market. And from what we've been seeing, there's been no case so far that a development has been done and it's lamenting to sell,
So with that, with the developers themselves, they have turned a profit on all of these developments so far?
I think so. Well, I can't speak for the profit detail.
Right, fair enough. Yeah.
But I'm sure if it was a case that they weren't making the profit that they expected or reasonable profit, that they would have exited the market a while ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's a lot of work and it's dirty work. To
it is.
Be in the mud and the concrete and so on. So I'm thinking for the amount of work that it is, if it wasn't profitable, they would have exited.
And are most of these developers Jamaican?
Yeah, so far. You do have quite a few persons who are probably returning Jamaicans, and that's another aspect of the market that I as a realtor can really appreciate, because one of the things with the Jamaicans who have lived abroad for a while is that you see them bringing in probably a different style of construction, you know what I mean? Apartment development for many years have kind of looked the same way, kind of Jamaican style construction. But nowadays, as you go on a lot of the development, you see them starting to look more like construction that you'll see in New York, construction apartment complexes that you see in Florida. So a lot of the Jamaicans who are coming back, who are coming to invest from the perspective of being a developer, bringing that flair to the development, which we can appreciate. So yeah, most of them are Jamaicans. Some are Jamaicans who live here. Others are Jamaicans who are coming back on the island and just want to invest and want to contribute to the development that's going on in the corporate area.
And so is the appreciation also felt by the buyers and renters in terms of the style and the aesthetics of these developments?
Oh, definitely. And especially the persons who are coming back to buy or want to buy a property just for their own purpose of coming back on vacation or for investment, they probably would like and appreciate something that looks like what they have gotten used to living in the United States or living in Canada or somewhere else in the world. So definitely.
And as a realtor, do you get a lot of clients who are returning Jamaicans or even non-Jamaicans who are looking to buy a retirement home?
Oh, definitely, yeah. As a matter of fact, one thing funny, Winthrop, about the market is that I remember there was a client of mine who is from the UK, and in 2020 he called me like early January and he says, "Listen, I'm expecting the market to crash, so I'm coming in. I have some cash and I'm ready to buy up a lot of cheap property." Unfortunately for him, the market didn't crash. 2020 was one of the best years for real estate in Jamaica, ironically, you know what I mean? So, and a lot of that was diaspora purchase. So that a lot of Jamaicans who have been abroad for a while, a lot of Jamaicans who probably thought they weren't coming back, and then, the lockdowns in New York, the lockdown in other places in the world, and then you're looking on Facebook or on YouTube, and you're watching Jamaicans eating mango by the river, and you think, better I be in Jamaica than here. So, we did get a lot of investment that came out of the diaspora, and so that kept driving the market.
So it seems like we Jamaicans, we're the ones who are actually driving the boom that's happening.
Oh, definitely. And I think from my perspective, and I'm not an economist, but I've seen a more robust middle class. Like a lot of the persons who are buying the middle income properties, a lot of the persons who are buying the developments who are being done in Constant Spring Gardens and in Norbrook and so on, in those areas, are working Jamaicans.
That are living and working here.
That are living and doing a 9 to 5 in Jamaica.
That's amazing.
And as a matter of fact, a lot of them are Jamaicans who are buying their second and third properties. Because I think people are understanding how rich investment buying real estate in Jamaica is. You know what I mean? And I mean, I can tell stories. I remember like in 2016, 17, when a house in Heavendale was being sold for $15-16 million. Today, the same house is being sold for $45 million.
Oh my gosh.
So if you imagine that you invested $15 to $18 million, that's what, like 6-7 years ago, and now that you're making $25 million profit on that. I mean, there's hardly anywhere else that you can make that kind of investment. And persons who are paying attention to the market, who saw when a development in Barbican probably 4 years ago was being sold for $28 million, and the same a development beside it now, or somebody reselling one of those very same units, being sold for $45 or $50 million. And it just the huge profits that are there to be made in real estate in the corporate area now. So a lot of persons who probably would have been buying a Mercedes now think it more lucrative to buy an apartment and still drive the old car, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah, that's a big chunk of the market. So a lot of people don't realize it or don't believe, but a lot of them are just really smart investing working class Jamaicans.
That's fantastic to hear. And now with that, you have Jamaicans here buying property, Jamaicans abroad buying property in the New Kingston corporate area. Is there another part of Kingston that may not have been felt by the boom, if you will, that people can consider investing now to kind of get ahead and kind of see where the hockey puck is going to be, so to speak, and catch that wave before it happens?
It's still happening in that the city is still growing out. So you find that in some areas now, and you'll see it also on the television, there are mixed reactions to it and mixed feeling to it. But there are some communities, like communities in Heavendale and communities in Constant Spring Gardens, that were traditionally just single-family homes that I believe out of necessity are now in the infancy of that type of development. So the prices that you're getting there are the prices that you'd have to buy in New Kingston and Kingston 6-4. So if you're looking to invest now, you probably want to liaison with your realtor, find out what is going on the outskirts of these areas, and probably want to invest in that area or in those areas for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so with that, you've been kind of rattling off a bunch of different neighborhoods.
That's right.
And so if you could, to the best of your ability, like give us a breakdown of like the Kingston 5, the Kingston 6, and in relation to kind of the type of neighborhood, so to speak, maybe in relation to New York, as a New Yorker, I can kind of relate to that, and I think some of my audience members can do that as well in terms of like, you know, downtown Brooklyn compared to Manhattan, Long Island, that sort of thing, just so we can have an idea of what we're talking about in terms of the stages we're at currently and perhaps where the market will be going.
Actually, New Kingston is kind of the commercial district now. It's similar to what Kingston was. Downtown Kingston was probably back in the 50s and so on. So New Kingston is that. Kingston 5. And so that's where the density is much higher. It's the highest. That's where now you find a lot of the high-rise are going up. Okay. So it's in Kingston, what we call the Golden Triangle, and the outskirts. When you get now into probably Kingston 6, which is going into Barbican, Ligonier sides, that pretty much is the pinnacle of the market. So that's where density is a little lower, but the price is the highest.
Would that be like Upper East Side kind of thing, Manhattan?
Yeah, that's right. So that's where a lot of, so you have some neighborhoods in Kingston 6 that you cannot get any kind of communal living, no kind of apartments on those roads, strictly none. And some of those are the areas where, I mean, if you're buying a house for like 1.5 million US dollars, you're buying a fixer-upper. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're not so if you're looking top of the line, then you're looking probably $4 or $5 million US.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's Kingston 6. On the Constant Springs side, Kingston 8 is where now it's kind of the spill off from the Kingston 6 development is beginning to happen. And that's coming back from what you were talking about, the road projects. That has kind of been the spill off of the road widening project that happened just a few years ago. So the Constant Spring area is one of those areas that it was really a nightmare to get home. If you live in Lower Constant Spring, Waterworks, Stony Hill, I mean, just a mile would easily take you 2 hours. You know what I mean? It was horrible. But since the road widening has happened, I mean, the desirability for the area has gone up. I mean, the density is going up. I mean, more high density development. Not as high as Kingston 5, definitely. But more apartment complexes going up in those areas and going into Norbrook. So Kingston 8, Kingston 6 is kind of the top of the food chain. Kingston 5 is more like downtown Brooklyn, you know, downtown Manhattan kind of thing. So that's where the commerce, where the banks are, where the head offices are, and so on. So on the outskirts of those now are some of the Queen community, the private dwelling community that are now seeing the apartment complex coming into those communities.
Okay. And is there, to your knowledge, is there like a grand plan or a grand vision or a grand scheme for Kingston as a whole?
There definitely is, and I think it's also being worked on as we go, because there is a pushback and push forward between persons who have probably liked some of their communities the way they were for the last 50 years, and some persons who want to go in and develop, and the government is trying to find the equilibrium between those two. As regards the grand plan, I don't know if I can speak to a grand plan as regards real estate, but it's us trying to find the equilibrium between what those who have lived in some of these areas have been used to and what is necessary. You know what I mean? It's only necessary that more people, and it's happening everywhere in the world, urbanization, a lot of areas, and a lot of persons want to move into the city to live.
Right.
And it makes sense for more persons want to live closer to work, more persons want to live close to their social life, to where they socialize, closer to restaurants, you know what I mean? So as that happens, out of necessity, there are going to be the demand for more high-density development properties. So I think between the parish council and you know, like NEPA and those groups who kind of are the groups that govern the development, I think now they're trying to work out the equilibrium. And some of that you'll see on the television from day to day, as we got one group, you know, trying to meet with the other. You know, sometimes there are protests about the development coming in an area, but they're just trying to get, you know, work that out as we speak, kind of iron out things.
Okay. And then do you know of any type of particular business or particular industry that Kingston is going after, whether it's national or international?
I think there are just a couple. Like now you find the BPOs, there a lot of them are in Kingston and doing really, really well. And being in the real estate industry, you realize more and more how many coming. Ever so often you're getting a demand. Somebody want 5,000, 10,000 square foot for rent or to purchase to open one. entertainment has been another one. I mean, Jamaica is the home of reggae, and a lot of persons have been saying, well, Kingston, you need to have more things regarding geared towards reggae entertainment. So if somebody land in Jamaica on any given day, there's supposed to be a cafe, a concert, or something that is not too far away. You know what I mean? Just like any other, nation that is known for a particular thing. So I think hospitality, there's a lot of things that are being developed now, and hence the billing out of that. I think it's just a part of the 2030 vision that the government and private sector is working towards.
Okay, wonderful. So Noel, we're in downtown Brooklyn at the World. So we're in my mind is in New York, right? So we're in downtown Kingston.
That's right.
At the world famous Gloria's.
Yep.
Right here on the waterfront.
That's right. Gloria's is kind of the spot in Kingston for seafood. Okay. You know what I mean? And it has had its origins in Port Royal many decades ago by, as the name suggested, Miss Gloria, who there's now two branches in Port Royal. There's this branch that opened in Kingston 2018, I think it was, and there's a branch that was opened in Ocho Rios. So the children, Miss Gloria's children, have now taken over management. And I mean, anywhere you go for Gloria's, once the name is there, the quality of the food remains the same, and it's just been iconic over the years as a part of the landscape in the corporate area. And hence, I mean, the Kingston branch opening up in 2018 was a welcome addition as a part of the development or the redevelopment of downtown Kingston, and it has just been doing awesome since. Yeah,
I can see they've had a real impact on the area. It's super popular. We came here yesterday. It was jam-packed at dinner. We had lunch here today.
That's right.
Fish was absolutely amazing.
That's right.
Humongous, as a matter of fact. So portions were very generous.
Yeah.
So huge shout outs to the owners for allowing us to do the podcast here.
Definitely.
And I can personally recommend the food here. Obviously, the view is spectacular, and you are really almost feel like you're in the water. To be honest, you're seeing pelicans dive in and everything like that. So I think you get a full package here with the service, with the quality of the food, and then also the ambiance is wonderful.
Definitely. Yeah.
And being that they are really a staple in downtown Kingston.
That's right.
Let's talk about the development of the area. And as you were alluding to earlier in our conversation, downtown Kingston at one time had this high class, if you will, reputation.
That's right.
In recent past, it has been viewed as a place a little bit, so to speak. And now it's kind of coming back, if you will.
It's definitely coming back. As a matter of fact, kind of starting with the Digicel building, which is kind of to our right. That investment a few years ago, Digicel bringing their headquarters to downtown Kingston. This building that Gloria was in, as a boy, I remember this building. I mean, just run down. It was empty for many years. It was abandoned. So now there's Gloria's here. There are other restaurants downstairs. There's bars upstairs. The famous Oceana Hotel was also empty and abandoned for many years, just across the road that you were looking at yesterday. Is being refurbished, and I think should be managed by the Hilton Hotel. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs that was just finished to our right, just around the corner. The new Grace Kennedy building that was just done. So this is a part of the capital kind of coming back, and the government has been pushing for many years. We've heard a lot of the announcements. A part of the road widening project also leading from kind of the Harborview corridor coming into Kingston. That's been worked on. So persons who have not been here for a while, probably 15, 20 years, come back to Kingston, they might not know their way. Right. Kingston that they left is a totally different place. And as a matter of fact, a lot of persons are now running to own a piece of property, whether commercial or residential, downtown in Kingston, because similar to what happened in New York, and you being somebody that grew up in New York could be able to appreciate remembering what was happening in the 90s in Brooklyn compared to the Brooklyn today. Watching real estate, I remember some of my family members that are in Brooklyn will tell you that, boy, there's some areas that you could get a house for, 50,000, 100,000, and some areas that were really bad. The government was actually giving away properties. You could give some $100 and just get the deed. Nobody wanted to live there.
Right.
But now those same properties are being sold for like $3-4 million US. dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can you imagine that you are an investor there that kind of weathered the storm and the benefit today? And similarly, there are a lot of persons who, even during the downtime in downtown Kingston, held on to their property. A lot of persons left. A lot of persons abandoned their property, and they wish they could come back and get it, because I mean, there's a property that a similar real estate company listed just a few weeks ago. To our right, there's just an open lot that was beside the fishing village for many years. Nothing was being done with it, and just a few weeks or months ago, it was listed for $3 million and was sold, I mean, so quickly.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So everybody know who kind of see the vision of what's happening in the corporate area. I mean, the view, if you go into any one of these buildings behind us and look at the view out in the seats, really beautiful. And for many of us, especially those of us who are Kingstonians, I mean, we cried for many years the fact that, man, this is our capital,
right,
and it was left abandoned that way. But I mean, as I said, the ripple effect of the real estate boom that's going on now in the capital, I mean, everywhere is feeling it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there are more places, even coming out of this COVID period, there are a lot more businesses you're seeing opening, restaurants that are opening up. I mean, a lot of natives to the corporate area are now venturing off into, starting their own business. So there's a lot of need for commercial real estate, as I said, restaurants, probably spas and different things. So feeding into that, also part of the drive for property and hiking property and make investing in the corporate area really, really good, you know what I mean? And really, really rewarding.
I mean, when you see companies like Grace Kennedy, Digicel,
that's right,
Hilton,
and it's billions of dollars they're investing.
Right, the government put up a brand new building down here. I always think, and this is my little conspiracy, like when you see companies like that moving and entities like that moving, like they know something, right? They know something I don't know. They know something we don't know. So they're seeing something, and I think that's an incredibly good sign for this area.
Absolutely.
Now, would you call this, again using the New York analogy, would you say like this is kind of Bed-Stuy, Williamsburg like 10, 15 years ago?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely is. And so it was, I mean, for those persons who are, you talk to somebody living in New York that were familiar with downtown Kingston probably in the late 80s, early 90s, they tell you that some of these areas, even Water Lane that we were at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock taking pictures last night, a few years ago, they wouldn't be caught dead there.
Oh, really?
I mean? Some of these areas were really rough areas.
Okay.
But one of the things I really, as I said, being on the forefront of the real estate boom in the corporate area, as a Kingstonian, can appreciate, is to see how the real estate development is bringing a regentrification to areas that it seemed like nothing else could do. You know what I mean? Areas that are being bought and redeveloped by private developers that you thought 10 years ago, 15 years ago, could never come back. You know what I mean? And I said the smart investors were the one who, there's this old saying that success rewards the brave.
Right.
So those who are on the forefront of this development, who are willing to go into some of these areas and buy early, they buy cheap. You know what I mean? There's one property we have up the road listed. It's an older building on East Street. It's now being sold for $30 million. And the guy exactly across the road who bought a few years before I listed my property told me that he bought the similar building for $8 million.
Wow.
So you can see the difference, you know what I mean?
Right.
So because he was willing to invest early and invest when other persons were doubtful about whether or not they should, I mean, the difference in that is what, $22 million. You know what I mean?
That's real money.
So that's real money. I mean, there's hardly anything you could do that, and you're making those kind of gains in probably 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? So as I said, being on the forefront of the development and seeing the changes, it's really, really exciting. It's really, really exciting, and it's really just I mean, it's hard to explain just being on the forefront of the change and being forefront of history.
And now, with the communities here now and the people who've been living here, like that's also a concern of mine, because being somebody who grew up in Long Island, but my mother's lived in Brooklyn essentially her whole life, and I feel I have as well. And we've seen the gentrification that happens in our neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and I'm wondering, is there anything put in place to take care of, so to speak, the people who have been here and have gone through those violent times? And I would hope in some way that they would be reaping the benefits and people are looking out for them.
Well, as I said, for those who actually own property and kind of, trusted and weather the storm, there's the obvious benefit for them.
Right.
There are currently discussions with the politicians and stakeholders of persons who actually have lived through it about making sure that the regentrification doesn't mean a wholesale moving out of the persons who have lived through it. You know what I mean? I know there are a lot of projects in place with the government, with like the housing trust, that is geared towards developing properties that are that people are able to afford. You know what I mean?
Right.
In some way, some things put in place to get these people into, comfortable housing. As those things come together, I really hope to see the same thing too, because Kingston is not just a location, it's a culture, it's a people, it's the way we live, it's the way we act, you know what I mean? So people come to visit, they're not just coming to visit for block and steel, they're coming to see the culture, to hear how we talk, the love for music, that's all a part of the mix, so we want that bit of it to stay.
Okay. No, that's really good to hear. I'm really happy to hear that, because I would hate to see something like that that
I absolutely
we
agree.
have felt and I have felt in the
definitely.
States. And I'm glad to hear that there is a plan in place
That's right.
for those communities and for those people.
Yeah.
And now, we talked about a lot of the corporations coming into downtown Kingston. Is there a plan for the waterfront? Is there a plan for Kingston? As you mentioned, like this view, and I can only imagine what it looks like from the top of that building up there, like spectacular. I mean, these are $1 million views anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
And are there plans to continue to take advantage of these views in the area?
Definitely. As a matter of fact, there was which you may have heard of, it's just a few years ago, the government actually spearheaded the bringing back cruise ships to Kingston. And it started with some development in Port Royal. Port Royal is one of the most famous cities in the world.
Right.
With so much history. And I think a few years ago we had our first cruise ship coming back into Kingston. And I think the government is continuing to build on that. There are currently discussions about bringing back the ferry, which the ferry that runs from Port Royal to Kingston and back, but also adding to that, a ferry that runs from St. Catherine to Kingston. So a lot of persons who have to commute from St. Catherine, who live in Portmore, Greater Portmore, and probably Old Harbour, it's easier for them to take a 5-minute trek to a port in St. Catherine, and then probably a 15-minute ferry up into Kingston. So there are a lot of things in place kind of to bring back life, entertainment and development in the corporate area that both the government and private sector are working hand in hand to bring back.
That's brilliant. That's the first time I'm hearing about a ferry system coming back into play, because that again is going to take more cars off the road.
That's right.
Free up traffic, more movement, more commerce. Really smart thinking in my opinion. So I'm really happy to hear that. And we were talking off camera before about the prison, which is on probably some of the most valuable property there is in Jamaica, maybe the Caribbean. And it's sitting there and wondering if there are any plans. Have you heard anything happening with that?
There are discussions. I remember a few years ago there was the UK discussion and so on. I don't know exactly where it is now, but I'm sure the government and some private sector group are in discussion currently. The prison's really sitting on probably easily 10-15 million US dollars worth of real estate.
Oh my gosh.
On Waterfront. So the prisoners are getting some of the best real estate in the country, really. So that being said, I'm sure something is in the pipeline. If I had the money, I'd build a new prison and take all of that land myself. I wish I did. But I'm sure it's a part of the development. There have been discussions about it. I'm not sure where it is now, but as we go forward, as I said, the coalition of the private sector and the public sector working hand to hand, I'm sure that there's some stage of the game we will be moving the prison to somewhere more, lucrative real estate wise.
Fair enough. So you're telling me about Port Royal, and I didn't really know that's the Palisados. That's going to the airport and going to Port Royal.
Behind
and you were telling me that this was actually
the 15th parish.
So this was land that we're looking at.
A lot of this harbour was land, and it went all the way back out to a lot of the keys like Lime Key, Drunkerman Key. So it was a whole heap of land. So as I said, it was a 15th parish. So in the 1690s, we had a really devastating earthquake, and it kind of took most of the land, sank. And that's what the bit of Port Royal has left since.
Wow, I had no idea. I had no idea that it was that big.
There's been a couple of excavations since and dives, because at the time, it was a really rich pirate city.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
And we've heard the history of it, and there are a lot of buildings that sank, and there are videos on the internet that shows even a lot of the buildings that are still visible under the water.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that now, as you mentioned before, now a vibrancy is bringing that back between cruise ships coming in and tourism.
Definitely.
So that's really amazing to know and hear.
Yeah.
Now, with going back to the development and particularly the developers, are a lot of them coming down here to downtown Kingston?
Well, not yet. As regards residential development, it is really just about to begin. So a lot of persons are now in the preliminary discussions about that. A lot of persons are now trying to get land. And as you can just imagine, because this is an old city, a lot of the land parcels other than the prison and the commercial lots that were there were not very large. You know what I mean? So unlike, areas in Kingston 8, Kingston 5, Kingston 6 that were way uptown back in the day, where the lots that were allocated for residential development was much larger. Downtown, they were much smaller. So right now, as the boom happens, to be able to get enough land to probably get a half acre to develop is a little bit more complicated, and it's getting more expensive. So those who have held over the last couple of decades, those will be the one to develop, and I think those persons are waiting, you know what I mean? So you want to get top dollar.
Right.
So if you're developing downtown Brooklyn, you're not going to develop too soon. You want to wait and watch the market kind of grow. And when you get to a place where you think you can get what is worth your time, then you develop. So.
And when you say complicated, do you mean that you kind of would have to buy multiple lots?
You
to
probably
put them
would
together?
have to be, because the lots, as I said, the lots are much smaller. So it's easy that one lot, a half acre is what? 22,000 square feet. A lot of the lots downtown, especially residential lots, are like 2,000, 3,000 square feet, even 1,000 square feet.
Oh, I see.
Because, as I say, it was a city, so it was really dense, you know what I mean? And even when it was houses, like, Rose Lane, Pink Lane, a lot of those areas were places where people actually lived back in the day, in the sense of it was a formal residential development. It was in the city, you know what I mean? Like anywhere else, the lots are smaller, you know?
So can you tell us a little bit about the actual developers? Who are they? How did they come about, sort of thing?
So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the developers are actually first-time developers.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
so as the market becomes lucrative, it's one thing some person will tell you it's a little bit complicated, but from inside looking out, it's not too complicated. If you have, let's say, a house in Heavendale, a house in Content Spring Gardens, and you want to develop that property to go into the KCC or to NEPA and to get your approvals, get your drawings, submit it, and develop. And because it's so lucrative, it's a lot of persons having properties like those will probably get a contractor, get a loan from the bank, and bulldoze the house that's on there and probably get 8 or 10 apartments, you know what I mean? They probably live in one, sell a couple, keep some for investment. So a lot of times the persons who I'm dealing with are first time, second time. There are persons who come in who have transitioned from other industries, who have come in, as I said, just because of how lucrative it is, and remain. Other times there are persons who are just coming to do 1 or 2 developments, and that's it.
I see.
Yeah.
And could foreign investors, like a Jamaican living abroad, could they become investors and developers, I should say? Like say, me, or if I was living abroad, me and like 3 or 4 of my friends get together, pool our money.
Oh, definitely,
and do this.
definitely. As I said, there's a lot of that happening. Both persons abroad, persons locally. You have a team of persons come together. One person might own the land, another person may be willing to contribute, some funds to get the drawing and stuff passed. They'll go to the different authorities and get what they're looking to do pass, and the bank will fund it. You know what I mean? A lot of the banks are very aggressive now in funding development once your stuff is above board, because how profitable it is and how profitable the market is. So as I say, a lot of persons, just a team of young people, one that we looked at since we've been looking around, it's just a group of young persons who came together, got their approvals, did a development, and it was really nice.
So you don't necessarily have to have the expertise of putting these buildings up.
Absolutely not.
Because honestly, I don't know which ones we looked at that are new developers or maybe second or third the developments, but they look fantastic. They look really, really good and sharp.
And as I say, a lot of persons. I mean, Jamaica have some really good architects that do awesome job. There are persons who are coming back who are bringing their own ideas, you know what I mean, and adding it to the market. And one of the things that you may have been seeing since we've been around is that there have been a big uptick in the Chinese contractors who are moving into the country. I mean, is realizing how lucrative the market is. I think we probably have more than 5 Chinese companies and driving around town. I think we can remember probably about 5-10 developments that have cranes on them. Most of them are actually Chinese.
So these are Chinese contractors.
Chinese contractors come into the country, and a lot of them are in discussion who, I mean, like the market so much, like what's going on, and want to transition from just being contractors to actually being developers themselves.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're coming back, I mean, if you're a Jamaican, you're abroad, and you want to invest in the market, it's not complicated. As I say, you come to Jamaica, you can find some land, you get an architect, get your drawing done, go to the different authorities, get it approved, and there are reputable contractors, whether you want to use the Chinese or whether you want to use a local, a registered, reputable contractor, get it done and, you know, get it sold.
And so how do you find this team? How do you find the architect? How do you find the contractor? How do you find the land?
Well, you call me to find the land.
Okay, there you go. Fair enough.
But I mean, once you enter the industry, there are a lot of attorneys who are just conveyance attorneys. There are quite a few of them that I work with. I mean, it's not hard. Once you come and you express that's what your interest is, there are architects, I mean, available. It's not hard to find. You can check the yellow pages. You can just ask anyone, they're reputable architect. And if you are not certain, you can always say, listen, show me something that you have done. Show me a building that you've done. You know, give me some references for, you know, things that you have done. And there are quite a few persons who are very active. You can even, a lot of the banks, the persons who are responsible for construction loans will know reputable architects and contractors that they have worked with and that they're comfortable working with. Because, I mean, without a doubt, a bank lending you $200 or $300 million to do a development, there are some things that they'll be looking for.
Of course,
you know what I mean? Obviously, they're not getting just anybody that's going to be building, anybody who's doing the drawing. So there's some person that they'll be looking for. So you can ask either at the bank, you can talk to your realtor, I mean, you can talk to your attorney, and these persons are available. It's not hard to find. Yeah.
Is it still a good time to invest in Jamaica in real estate, and more in particular to invest here in Kingston?
You know, one of the funny things I tell people, that while a lot of times those of us who have been in Jamaica and those of us who are familiar with Jamaica and with the Jamaican real estate market may be lamenting about price, I tell them to take in consideration that Jamaica is still in the infancy of its development and hence in the infancy of the potential of the prices. You know what I mean? So I can just imagine when downtown Kingston would have high-rise hotels and apartments on the waterfront, you won't be able to get the prices that you're getting now. You know what I mean? And as regards real estate prices in this side of the country and a city price, I mean, comparing it to Miami and New York, which are really just hours away, Jamaica is really in just kind of developmental stage. So the prices that are now, and a lot of them, they are shocking in comparison to Jamaica itself, are still kind of developing. You know what I mean? Not kind of, still developing, and hence as the development continue to grow and the boom continues to happen, I'm sure the prices are going to just go up and the demand is going to go up and availability will go down. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So it's not too late is what you're saying?
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it's still a good time. You know what I mean? You come in now, whether you come in as an investor, whether you come in as a developer, whether you are a first-time home buyer, you want to buy, still buy. I advise people buy, put off the Mercedes, put off the fancy car, buy real estate. If you're looking to invest, real property, you cannot beat real property. As I said, I can compare being in the industry for the last 10 years. Over the 5 years, I've seen some areas double. I've seen places move from 25 million to 50 million in 5 years. I've seen places move from 50 million to $1 million US in 5 years. You know what I mean? So it's still developing. The demand is still there. I mean, prices are just blown out of the market. And as I said, Jamaica is still in the infancy of its development, I believe.
And you know, as you say that, 2 specific developments come to mind in Kingston that I was told about. One is the Guardian Life development, That's and right. Then the Terra Nova development.
Oh yeah, everybody's talking about the Terra Nova.
Right. And yeah. I've only heard kind of what I've heard here. But do you know anything about those developments?
Guardian is really one, as I told you about earlier, about the high density development, the downtown Brooklyn, Manhattan kind of development, while the turnover is really high and luxury development.
Okay.
So part of turnover development is geared towards being hotel rooms, and a part that is just luxury apartments. Now, some of us as Jamaicans, we cry when we hear an apartment for $1 million.
It's $1 million US.
$1 million US.
Oh, wow.
It sounds a lot.
Yeah.
But if you compare that penthouse price for an apartment in Brooklyn, which is half or a quarter of that same size, for 2 or 3 or even $5 million US, you'll understand where the market potentially is headed. And that, remember that Jamaica, as regards a tourist destination and as an investment destination, especially here in the city, as different aspects of the city develop, I'm sure the prices will just continue to go up. You know what I mean? While let's talk about the turnover, for instance.
Okay.
A lot of persons have spoken to me about it, and they say it's ridiculous. I mean, at 3,000 square feet, 3,500 square feet for 1.5 million US dollars is too much. But if you compare that same kind of property or the same square footage or the same kind of luxury with something in Miami or something in New York, you're probably looking at 5 or 10 million US dollars.
Oh, well, yeah.
You understand? So when you compare apples with apples, you realize how it's still smart and it's still lucrative to invest. And I try to tell persons, whether you're a Jamaican abroad or you're a Jamaican who have developed you have grown up in the country, try not to look on real estate emotionally.
Okay.
If you're an investor or you're a first-time buyer, get your numbers. Talk to a professional, find out what are the trends, you know what I mean, for an area. Because sometimes when I talk to persons, you may take, for instance, the Deanery development that we visited earlier this week, and you're selling a studio apartment, 585 square feet for $17 million, right? Somebody will say, boys, that's Vineyard Town, and not buying it for that, because I remember when Vineyard Town was only this or only that. But I remember the same thing was said just up the road when the loft was being developed, when the same kind of square footage was being sold for $13 and $12 million. Now, the same units that were sold for $12 and $13 million 4 years ago in Thorpe are now being sold for $24 million. That's 3 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That's double the price in 3 years. So the persons who missed out on the loft because they thought, oh, it's right beside the stadium, it's at the top of Mountain View, they made emotional decisions. A lot of them could have afforded it, but they said, but I'm not buying it because of where it is. Now the same units are being sold for $24 million. And real estate in Jamaica only goes one way. For as long as I can remember, I've never had a case where a recession or anything caused us to have any kind of downturn in the market that caused a price fall off. So I try to tell people, as I said, whether you're abroad, whether you're Jamaican, you know what prices have been, you know what areas have been like price-wise. Try not to think emotionally about it, because as a New Yorker, as I say, you can relate. We made reference to this quite a couple of times since we've been going through this, that similarly, there were many places in New York that a lot of persons didn't like. It was given away almost for free. They didn't buy. Those who braved it, those who bought at that time, are today reaping the benefits. They're making 100 times, 1,000 times what they paid. You know what I mean? And so, if you're looking to invest in Jamaica, try to get your facts, get information, talk to your attorneys, talk to your realtor, talk to developers, you know what I mean? Talk to whoever you need to talk to, but get your numbers. Don't think about it emotionally, because if you do, you might miss the bus.
I see. So speaking of dealing and your recommendation of talking with professionals, if people have more questions or are interested in investing in Jamaica from an investment standpoint and from a residential standpoint or whatever have you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, my mobile number, which is the quickest way to get through to me, is 1-876-550-1600. That's 1-876-550-1600. Or they could reach me at email at Noel, that's Noel, at VLARealtors.com. That's Valerie Levy and Associate, Realtors.com.
Okay, and that number also works on WhatsApp?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
amazing.
Right.
So, Noel, I can't thank you enough for spending the last few days with us.
Yeah.
I know
the journey's been amazing.
Your wife, your family, you're like, where is this guy? Because you've been hanging out with us the whole time. So super appreciate it.
Definitely.
Big thank you to Gloria's here for giving us the space and the time to do our video podcast here. Really appreciate it. And I wanted to say a personal thank you to the owners here. I will be back. We won't be bringing all this camera equipment and anything like that. So Thank you to the owners of Gloria once again. And